today has been lit, as they say, because it is clear to a lot of people that things are getting more and more extreme. So, in addition to the attack on Venezuela and the extraction of Maduro and his wife Celia Flores, I mean, it feels like a month ago, but wasn't it like it hasn't even been a week? Anyway, the recognition that the pardoning of the former president of Honduras, who had been convicted in the United States of a number of drug trafficking charges in order to keep his party in power, the threats made against Colombia, the threats made against Cuba, the threats made against Mexico, the threats made against Greenland, the increasing salting of our media with the words Western Hemisphere by the right wing. Clearly, Trump is intending to exercise this idea of creating a very strong America and then grabbing other countries and their resources with that. And then, of course, yesterday he turned around and said that even though the U.S. budget for the military jumped from $800 billion to $1 trillion this year, he wants it to go to $1.5 trillion. We are already spending more on our military than the next 10 countries combined. He wants us to spend another $500 billion on that. And he has this fantasy that the tariffs are bringing in so much money that we're going to be able to pay for this. In fact, if you are not watching, you should be. You will see that our deficit and debt are skyrocketing. They are skyrocketing under him. And it just sort of astonishes me that when Biden used money for investment in the United States in infrastructure and in surviving the coronavirus pandemic, he got all kinds of feedback of people going, "What are you doing to our debt?" Now that Trump is simply basically putting money into ICE, the military, and his own pocket, and trying to fix the damage that he did with the tariffs, and stuff is going straight up. No one's talking about it, and we ought to be. All right. So what else has happened today? The other thing, as it's very clear that Trump is doing this, he actually said to the New York Times today that the only limit on his behavior in foreign affairs was his own morality and his own mind. And that, of course, is not only antithetical to everything that the United States stands for, I think it shows in a way that is harder and harder to ignore that he is not mentally okay. And a lot of people who were willing to look the other way and say, well, he can be reined in, or let's just let him sleep, or let's let him play with architecture. And by the way, he announced today that the new ballroom he wants to build is going to be as tall as the White House. I mean, basically, he's going to create his own huge ballroom. That's his plan anyway. I've said that they were trying to have him do architectural stuff to kind of distract him. And while that's the case, it's very clear there's something else going on with his own mental acuity. And there's a real question about how much he is aware of and how much of what we are seeing right now has actually been being directed by people like Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, who has, certainly embraced all the tenets of fascism before this. So those two things were very in your face today. At the same time, J.D. Vance doubled down on the attempt to smear Good as a provocateur and as somebody who was trying to attack the person who shot her. That has been thoroughly disproven at this point. Nonetheless, he went out and is increasingly trying to force us to believe it, which is another hallmark not just of fascism, but also of authoritarianism. Of totalitarianism. That's one of the big differences between authoritarianism and totalitarianism, is that totalitarianism, they want to control how you think as well as how you behave. And there's this clear attempt to get us to say, oh, yeah, you're right, when it is demonstrably untrue. And that, from George Orwell's 1984, the first rule of the party is you must always believe whatever the party says. And that's sort of one of the whole points of George Orwell's 1984. So that has been going on in this moment. They're also saying they're going to send more troops to Minnesota. on the heels of this shooting. And today, the FBI told the Minnesota, I forget the precise name of it. Hold on. The Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. This is an investigative, a statewide investigative bureau within the Minnesota Department of Public Safety that usually investigates crime scenes and normally works with the FBI. If the FBI comes in, the FBI has shut them out, said they can't have anything to do with this investigation. So again, they're really going to be trying to push this idea with the hope that this is the moment they can really solidify that power. And when I went out for a walk this afternoon, that was going to be today's talk, that this is the moment to say, to light up the phones, to especially to Republicans, to really say, we're not going down this road. We are not going to abandon the rules-based international order that has kept us safe for all this time in order to use our money. Remember, our tax dollars are ours. And in order to use our military, which are our sons and daughters, and which is supported by our money, in order to aggrandize freaking Donald Trump and his cronies, that it is so long past time to say, yeah, sure, go ahead. You can use my money for ICE. You can use my money for whatever. There are many ways in which often the government spends monies in ways that we don't necessarily approve of as individuals. And that's sort of the way it goes. I don't want that bridge, but I sure want this one. It's different when you stop spending any of our money on us, our healthcare, our infrastructure, our ability to enter the 20th century, addressing climate change, our health, all those things, and instead say, I'm going to take all your money and I'm going to use it to create a squad of my own goons who are responsible only to me, which is what the administration is clearly doing. And it's high time for us to stand on that. And that was kind of where I was planning to leave stuff today. And I went out for a walk. And then I came back and something interesting happened this afternoon. First of all, the Democrats in the House and in the Senate as well, but the Democrats in the House, of course, as you know, have been screaming about extending the Affordable Care Act credits, healthcare, the credits for the healthcare insurance that you buy on the Affordable Care Act markets. And the Democrats have been howling about this, and they were trying to force a vote on it through a discharge petition, I believe. And Mike Johnson was like, ain't happening. Well, you know what happened today? They got that vote. They forced, I think it was a discharge petition that got that through. They forced that vote, and more than a dozen Republicans voted in favor of it, and the House passed it. Still has to go to the Senate. The Senate might not deal with it. They may or they may not. But that is a huge crack in the dam in the House, that more than a dozen Republicans voted with the Democrats to extend the affordable health care. Why can't I think of the word? The insurance credits, whatever they're called. I'm sorry, I can't think of it now. And I've written it 16 million times. You can just tell I'm on overload like everybody else. But I'm not done yet. The next thing is that it certainly looks as if the House is going to vote to overturn 2 of Trump's vetoes, including one for that bipartisan bill to clean up Colorado's water. Now, it's not clear the Senate will take those up, but this is a House that at this point the Republicans can only lose 2 votes. And already they're saying, okay, we got to back off on this stuff that people care about, right? But we're not done yet. In Minnesota, the county district attorney of the county in which Ms. Good was killed said, we have the jurisdiction to charge the ICE officer who shot her, regardless of what the FBI does. He's clawing back that power and saying, hang on just a minute here. But I'm not done yet. Spotify was advertising recruitment ads for ICE. News about that went out and people quit Spotify. They quit using Spotify. Its stock dropped 10% in a month. And this afternoon, Spotify has said it will no longer accept recruitment ads for ICE. They're taking them down. But I'm not done yet. The Senate today agreed to move forward legislation that would force Trump to ask Congress before he advanced any more military action against Venezuela. Now, that to me looks a little bit like that horse is not only out of the barn, it's in the next county. But it was a big move, a big enough move that Trump promptly took to social media and said, I'm going to get all you people that you can't vote against me. But they did. But I'm not done yet. The other thing that happened was that in the Senate agreed to a resolution to hang that January 6th plaque honoring the officers who protected them during January 6th. Now, by law, it's supposed to be up, and the Republicans have simply refused to put it up. John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, said, okay, we'll put it up. They passed that resolution, they put it up. Now, it's a plaque, right? It's symbolic. Who cares? You know who cares? Donald Trump. Because what that says is we don't buy your idea that this was a peaceful patriot visit to the White House. We are honoring those officers who protected us on that day. So as I said, today it was lit in that the administration is really going for broke here. They're really trying to put in place this fascist government before Trump can no longer be president, which I think is very much writing on the wall here. I think you can see J.D. Vance trying to step into that role. And once the system is in place, you could put, a chicken in that system because it's not going to break easily. But at the same time they're trying to do that, and Trump is saying that, he can do whatever he wants and so on, we are finally, perhaps, starting to see real pushback from Republicans because the Democrats are not in power. There's nothing that they have really been able to do except gum up the works, and they have gummed up the works and make speeches, and they have made speeches and complained, and they have complained. But until they had those votes, there wasn't much they could do. And now, today, they had some of those votes. I'm not telling you that we're done here. But this afternoon was not the same country as we had this morning. And I think that's a really important change.